another entry into the assistant technology to help us deal with promoting academic integrity and detecting plagiarism. This one takes a diametrically opposed approach to doing this. Rather than focusing on teaching, learning, pedagogy, and strategies. This one is a minimalist approach in which the assignments are emailed, and then they go through this process and come out on the other end to the instructor with no alteration of pedagogy at all. So if you will join me in welcoming James Bennett from Urkund.
Okay, then good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the introduction. And thank you very much, of course, to the people who have organised this fantastic conference. I've had a great time, and it's just gone 12:40, so I think we're winning, aren't we? I feel the same as you do, which is the same as me, so that would make sense. They're a long day already. As introduced, I am James Bennett. I'm the head of sales of Urkund Plagiarism Detection. I thought I'd like to start off by saying that if you're sitting here going, oh God, no, a sales presentation, I'm not going to be doing a sales presentation. I'm looking more of a quasi-academic presentation about percentages, which came up just now. And if you're now thinking, oh no, a salesman going to do a presentation about something academic, I'd like to point out that I've been with Urkund now for almost 4 years, very close to 4 years. And before that, I was a teacher for 10 years, where I taught English and history. So I'm an English and history teacher, so I am a fantastically boring person to be around. I taught... I have an obsession with history and an obsession with language, typos excluded, of course. So in the 10 years before I joined Urkund, I spent a lot of time working with students who were plagiarising. And I was very happy to be very fortunate enough to be in a school in my last years that actually purchased a license with Urkund, so I used it firsthand and thus saw the problems of percentages. So my talk today is Accepting the Unacceptable, Why Percentages Are Not Your Friend. It's a very nice title. It's also a perfect example of why you don't come up with a title at 11 o'clock in the morning when you're 8 hours into a business trip and flying very high on caffeine and go, this will be great. So I'm now going to try and make it work. So percentages are not your friend. And just before we get into the percentage bit, back onto the friends bit, how plagiarism systems can be your friends. And I echo the feelings of everyone here about preventing plagiarism before it happens rather than catching it. Catching it is too late then. The deed has been done, the damage has been done, it's not a good thing. Want to prevent it beforehand. So I feel that plagiarism systems, and when I say plagiarism I mean text matching systems of course, they can be your friends if they are easy to use and easy to understand. If they are difficult, if they have barriers, you need to have a degree in computer science to work the thing, it's not good, it's not valuable. And of course, the results will be easy to understand. They also need to be used consistently, and I would say they need to be used correctly. And this is where I open my massive can of worms that I brought with me. So looking at the latter 2 points, consistently and correctly, of course, because easy to understand is a given. They have to be used consistently, and I actually can't see my own notes here, so hang on a second. We need to be used each and every time. I feel that if we are used each and every time at all levels of education, then you give a clear and very understandable message to people that plagiarism is not okay. Plagiarizing is not acceptable. If you wait until, we just do the master's degree courses, then you're kind of saying that it's okay to plagiarize up to and including the bachelor level. And if you say, well, we check bachelor's and master's thesis, you're doing the same up until then. And if you only check the final submission, then what you're saying is it's okay to plagiarize up until the final submission. So I feel that everything should go through a checking system. Everything, all the time. Not just at master's, not just at bachelor's, not just at university level either, but in the colleges and schools beforehand. When it's used correctly, this is more worms, I think this is probably more important. It has to be controlled by the teacher. I personally, and the company as well, we do not believe in students having access to a system. We do not believe that students should submit their own work, see the results, submit it again, clean, submit, clean, submit, clean, submit, clean, submit, clean, and then submit for realsies to the teacher. I think it's one of those things that people think, well, maybe the ends justify the means, but I disagree. If you want essays not to contain plagiarism, that's what we want, of course. Outsourcing plagiarism education to a system that's not a human and cannot understand human emotions and how people write is a poor substitute for the real thing. Students don't learn by looking at the results of what's been found and cleaning what's been found and submitting again. They learn by being taught how not to plagiarize. So a key point of this whole thing is teaching people how to do it properly the first time. Not punishing them when they do it wrong, although of course, yes, but making sure they do it correctly the first time. And this is why I believe that teachers should control who accesses the system. And my colleague was here 2 years ago and did a decent talk on this, so I'm going to drop this one for now and go back to my percentages. I also think that a system should only be available to academic institutions, so schools, colleges, universities, and not to ghostwriters or anyone else who has a credit card. I use the word undesirables. It's my word of the month. I don't think it is okay to let a university pay a license fee to use a plagiarism detection system, a text matching system, within the university, while simultaneously taking $50 maybe, I can't remember how much it was now last time I looked, a certain fee from a ghostwriter to have their essay checked and then not go into the repository, so that when the student then goes in and writes their name on the top of the essay and then submits it, through the very same system, it comes up as, a 0% match. I think there is a clash of, there's a certain element of integrity that, I'm not going to start pointing fingers, but we do not sell licenses, we do not sell analyses to people who have absolutely no point analysing a document for plagiarism. So that's one of my things. I think it should be used correctly like that. And of course, the results have to be accurately interpreted. And I think a 20% match is very easy to interpret accurately. 20% of the document has been found somewhere else. It's empirical. There's no discussion about this. When it's found somewhere else, that's fine. But of course, the results then need to be used properly. And this basically leads me on to my next point. There are percentages, and there are percentages, and there are percentages of percentages. And I've given this example. They've been misleading people since the classical era. Percent is a Latin word, so I assume the concept of percentage was done around that time too. What often comes up is that it's very clear. It's a yes, yes, and then it gets confusing. So here are my couple of examples. There are 3 examples in total. I like to think about how much has been plagiarized and look at the percentage. And I'm using the word plagiarize, and this is an awful straw man example, I fully accept. So we're going to assume that no referencing has been done, nothing at all. This is pure copy-paste, etc., etc. So in the first example, we have a block of text of 4 lines of original writing. So it's totally original writing, 4 lines. Again, it's a very short example just for the purpose of today. I think we can all agree that the percentage score for this is going to be a big 0. Can we all agree on this? All things being equal, yes. If we move on to the next one, this is the very same block. So the very same block of text with the last 2 lines having swapped for something that's been scanned to Wikipedia and pasted straight in. And again, no quotations, no citations, no referencing, just for the sake of the example. I think that if we, all things being equal, I think we can all by and large pretty much agree that we're now onto 50%. Can we agree on 50% now has been plagiarized from something else? So we take the third example. So this is the very same block, and this time the last 2 lines have been, let's just say rewritten in my own words, as students like to say. And so then every other word has been changed. So what is the percentage now? I'm not going to ask you to say this. I always hate this in the argument. So what do you think? And then try and prove people wrong. I would say that there will be 3 groups of people. There are always 3 groups, never 2. Because one doesn't care. One's not going to participate. I would say that most of you are in the other 2 groups. That half of you will be saying that, well, it's 25% in it. Because half of 50 is 25. So it's 25% plagiarism. And there'll be another group of you who will think, no, but it's 50, isn't it? Because the last 2 lines are from Wikipedia, and yes, they've been reworded, but it's still a 50% hit with Wikipedia, which has been changed. So then, is it 25 or is it 50? Is it 25? Is it 50? Can there even be a proper and definite and totally correct answer? I mean, I don't think it really matters. This falls back to the discussion of the previous presentation. Well done, guys. Very nicely done. You still here? No, I don't know. Maybe. I don't think it matters. I think the real important thing is that something has been found that has been taken from somewhere else without referencing. That is a significant thing, not the percentage score. You know, if it's, you know, people get very hung up on these percentages, which I'm going to show you in a minute now. Here we go. Are you ready for this? L'erreur incroyable. This gives a little bit of a clue of where this came from. It is French, by the way. So, hello, could you and your team members rework that file without making it longer? In order to comply with the anti-plagiarism rule, your Urkund score is 11% similarity. As soon as possible, let's say Tuesday at the latest. Hugs and kisses, name of your teacher. I'm not making this up. It's a genuine thing, a genuine email. It came in underneath the email that was forwarded to me from someone. Could you find the reports, please? So anyway, could you and your team members rework the file without making it longer in order to comply with the anti-plagiarism rule? I do not know what this school's, somewhat of a leading business school, what this school's plagiarism policy is. I do not know exactly. I can make an educated guess that 10% is the golden figure. That anything up to and including 10 or below 10 is okay. But anything 10 or above or double digits is not okay. So, I must say, they didn't do it by Tuesday. So, the students are left with two options here, really. The devil or the deep blue sea. They can change out their quotations to reduce the percentage score, and this would ignore the fact that you're altering a total essay. I have written an essay. I wrote my master's thesis on something awfully pretentious. It was the phenomenology of the part and the whole in John Cooper Purse's Weymouth Sands. I told you I was a boring person. I'm not lying, not exaggerating. I would not be able to take out a quotation and write something else in its place. There is a train of thought going all the way through that enormously long essay. So to take out a quotation and write something else would be to damage my essay and make it, obviously it was fantastic, but make it less fantastic, make it less good. I don't use the word worse, but less good, which means worse. The other alternative is, of course, to add more to your essay, to make it longer. If you have 11% of your 10-page essay, chuck on another page that reduces the percentage score, should be roughly okay, yeah? Now this ignores the fact that we're adding a page of waffle, or a chunk of waffle, to an essay. Now, going back to my master's thesis, and you're all here listening to me, you can tell that I waffle a not insignificant amount, so adding an extra page of waffle to my essay would be a god-awfully terrible thing to do. So, this is how to get around the magical score of 10%, and must also point out that I'm also completely ignoring how that was not an option in the email beforehand, but I'm trying to make a point. So, this riles me in ways that perhaps it shouldn't, because you're ending up diluting the content of the essay, you're diluting the impact of what the student, or students, or group of students, the impact that is trying to be put across within the essay. I would also say that you are devaluing, or what children these days say, disrespecting the theme, the topic, the subject, by saying that, you're only 11%, I need down to 10. What I need to do is add a whole extra page to this essay. It shows that perhaps that the plagiarism policy of this school does not take into account the value, or intrinsic value, of what is being taught, by and large. Which leads on, of course, just to hammer this example home a bit further, my absolute favourite, or favourites of favourites, of George Orwell. I am obsessed with George Orwell. If I ever feel lonely, I will read one of his books again. I've read them, especially Animal Farm, and especially 1984. Books that I incorporated into my curriculum when teaching English as a second language. Wasn't very popular. Because I wanted to read students' thoughts on these books. 1984 comes in at roughly 400 pages. Animal Farm, very depressing story, very good story, comes in around 100 pages. 1984 also contained the political manifesto within that book, so you could argue it contains a chunk anyway, but we'll ignore that. Stephen King's The Stand is 1,350 pages long. You can see where I'm leading to here. Now, if you were to put 1984 inside The Stand, you'd be looking at around a 30% plagiarism score, which is clearly not okay. It's clearly not okay to put George Orwell's 1984 inside Stephen King's The Stand. If you were to put Animal Farm inside The Stand, you'd be putting in around 7.41%. Thus, it's okay to put Animal Farm into The Stand. Maybe you would argue it did definitely improve the Stand. Although, actually I'm a massive fan of Stephen King as well, but never mind. I would say that, I know this sacrilege, this is Kobe beef compared to hamburger, or smoked tofu, a real impressive vegetable patties for you vegetarians out there. This is perhaps something that one shouldn't really be looking at, but we'll do it anyway. So, I mean, it's not okay. This cannot be seen as okay. And like I said, I'm fully aware that I'm making a straw man. At the reference, of course. But this is a good straw man. We can see this one. There's a gentle, lovely straw man. He's getting married and everything, so it's a good thing to have. So, roughly to summarise, because I've been told my time is coming to an end, percentages are absolute, apart from when they're not. There is no magical percentage point. I am asked almost every single place I visit what the magical percentage point is. And I give my George Orwell, Stephen King example, and then people realise, yes, that was a bit of a silly question, wasn't it? What I try and do instead is to pre-answer the question before it's asked, so people don't have to ask the question and feel awful afterwards. There is no magical percentage. There cannot be a magical percentage point. An example, I know you shouldn't give new stuff in a summary, but I'll do it anyway. We have a client, a university in the south of Sweden, in Lund. You might have heard of it, it's called Lund University. And the legal departments, they have as a requirement that the students take an article, copy-paste it on the front page of their essay, and then write their analysis of it afterwards on the second page. This is so the teacher, the professor, does not need to go through the database to find the article. Seems pretty reasonable to me. If there were to be a magical percentage point, it would be, I don't know, say 10 or 20, 25, doesn't matter. These students, all things being equal, come up with 50. So then you would end up failing and having to bring the entire cohort of students in front of the beak to explain why they plagiarized 50%, doubling the acceptable score and so on and so forth. It is a ridiculous concept. There is no magical percentage point that can ever be accepted. And even if there were one, it's not one that a system could decide on behalf of something else. Systems, and I wish it were not the case, systems are not perfect. There'll be things that are missed, there'll be things that will come up later on. So analysis done today will not be as good as analysis done in 3 weeks' time. It will not be as good as analysis done in 10 years' time from now. So by saying and by outsourcing plagiarism checking to a brainless, or artificial intelligence maybe, a brainless system is a terrible mistake. It is a fallacy to think that a system can handle your plagiarism stuff for you. So, no magical percentage point, it cannot be. Outsourcing to a system is a poor idea. Arbitrary percentages to decide whether an essay is acceptable or not is not a thing to do. It is not good for the teacher, it's not good for the student, and it's not good for the subject. And then finally, also to go back, because I made my stupid title of Percentages Not Being Your Friend, percentages are not your friend. I've got a couple of moments perhaps for questions. If not, then thank you very much. James Bennett, Urkund Plagiarism Detection. Thank you.
So why does Urkund report so many percentages in its reports?
This is the question that I was expecting from someone. Go ahead, thank you very much indeed. Who'd have thought it? It is a way of measuring how much has been found somewhere else. We are a tool and we provide the information that people may or may not want to have. I would, much like Go Earl in his earlier presentation, I wish for the day when people no longer look at the percentages. Again, a 0% score means you've not made any quotations. Not a good result. A 50% does not necessarily mean you've skanked 50% from somewhere else. We provide the percentages because people want to see the percentages. They want to use it as a way to measure how much has been taken, but we do not demand that people read the percentages or use the scores, as gospel.
Great. Thank you very much. Let's thank you one more time.
Thank you.